Happy Sabbath. Glad you're here. Hope everybody's healthy and staying safe inside. Just want to say hi to Kendall, Abby, Michael, Ava, Leo, Faith San Diego, and Pastor Dennis's Faith. We also have baby Marco. Hope you're doing well with your first steps. And maybe some of our visitors. Hi, James. Hi, Melina, Johnny, and Amy. So we're going to start with our song. See you in a little bit. Did you guys march around the house pretending you're following Jesus because he's the best leader of all? So the next thing we're going to do is wait for Luis, and he's going to help us with our memory verse. So I'm going to do the actions, and I want you to fill in the words. Ready? All right, here's Luis.
Come and follow me, Jesus said. Matthew 4:19. One more time. Come and follow me, Jesus said. Matthew 4:19.
Ho, ho! You know what time it is?
It's time to hear a story full of wonder. There's so much fun we'll have learning together. So let's go down to the clubhouse with Ollie and his friends. Let's go down to the clubhouse where wonder never ends at the Wonder Clubhouse. Meet with you at the Wonder Clubhouse. Meet with you. That's 1 cup of sugar. Oh, hello there, friends. Welcome to the clubhouse. It's me, Lucy, and I'm so happy to see you all today. Today is the last day that Manny and I are playing our game. be the leader. Can you guess who I am? You guessed it. I'm a chef. I lead in the kitchen. Today, we are making my grandmother's famous ooey gooey chocolatey chip cookies. First, I need to pour the sugar into the cookie batter. Next, I need to stir the mixture for 2 minutes until it becomes ooey and gooey. I think they're almost ready. I just need to put them on my cookie sheet. There, now they're ready for the oven.
Hoo! Hoo!
Hey, it's Ollie.
Hello, Lucy. Hoo! Hoo! Pretending to be a chef, are you?
Hi, Ollie. I sure am. The Be the Leader game we've been playing has been so much fun. Today, I'm a chef making cookies.
You love to lead in the kitchen. It's true. I have a story about loving people for you. Just listen to this story. Just follow me through. Hoo! Hoo!
Follow me through. Follow me through. Ollie's got a Bible story for me and you.
Hello, friends. I'm Aisha. Welcome to my cupcake food truck. Do you want to see today's special cupcake? They're called Inside Surprise because when you open them, there's a heart inside. Surprise! I made them to remind everyone that we need to love each other. That reminds me of a story. Are you ready? If you are, on the count of 3, yell, "Tell me a story." 1, 2, 3. Tell me a story. We've been learning a lot about how to follow Jesus. But today, drum roll please. Today we are going to talk about the #1 way we can follow Jesus. Everyone say, what is it? What is it? Let's find out. Jesus and his friends were having dinner one night when Jesus said, "I'm going to tell you a brand new rule to follow." Do you want to know what it is? Drum roll please. Jesus said the most important thing you can do is love others the way I have loved you. Whoa! If we want to follow Jesus, the #1 thing we can do is to love others. So let's practice. Let's say you and a friend are riding bikes and your friend falls down. What do? Do you stop and help or do you keep riding? You stop and help. That's loving others like Jesus. Okay, what if your friend Rosa is over to play in the sandbox with you, but you've only got 1 shovel? Do you keep it to yourself or share with Rosa? You share with Rosa. That's loving like Jesus. Okay, what if you find out your older brother accidentally broke your Lego creation? Do you stay angry with your brother or do you forgive your brother and work together on building a new one? You forgive your brother. That's right. That's loving like Jesus. See, you guys are awesome already. Remember, if you want to follow Jesus, then the most important #1 thing to do is to love people the way Jesus does. The most important thing is love. What is it? Love. Say it again. Love. Did you like the story? If you did, give it 2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs up. Oh, hey there, Ollie. Tell me, who can you follow?
I can follow Jesus. Yes, it's true. Now let's hear it from you. Tell me, who can you follow?
I can follow Jesus. That's the truth, friends. You better believe it. Bye.
So there's your story. It's all true. Jesus loves everyone, so we can too.
Thanks, Ollie.
goodbye to you. Ho, ho.
Wow, what a great story. Jesus is the most special leader, and when we follow Jesus, we can love others the way he loves us. I think I got the story. Did you get it? If you did, say got it. Get it? Got it! Good. Hey, you know what? Once these cookies are done, I'm gonna love like Jesus and share them with everyone in my neighborhood. I'm going to make them for the lifeguard, the crossing guard, my teacher. Well, I guess this means that this chef better get cooking. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
All right, so what did you guys think of this story? Did you see Aisha's cupcakes? What shape was inside her cupcake? It was a heart. That's right. So I have a few examples. What is this? This is a TV remote control. Have you ever had to fight over this TV remote control with a brother or sister because you wanted to watch your favorite show and they just came over and swooped and changed the channel? That's not very nice, right? But God still wants us to love our brother or sister if they hurt us. Here's another one. I have 2 toys, but maybe one of my daughters wants this toy and the other daughter wants this. But what happens if my daughter takes them both and takes it from her sister? That's not very nice. So what God wants us to do is share. And look how cute this little piggy is and this little doggy is. They are going to share. And like the piggy's giving the dog a little hug because God wants us to love each other as he loves us. And this is the last thing. So remember, I'm going to make this heart, and every time you hear me say the word love, you make this sign with me, okay? So this is our last Sabbath school for this particular lesson. Follow the leader. And who is the best leader? Jesus. That's right. And he wants us to love, did you make it? Each other as he loves us. We love you guys so much. Happy Sabbath.
Hi everyone. I just want to say hi and let you guys know how much I miss every single one of you guys. And I hope that your week has been great. Now let's stand up and sing and dance and let's worship this morning together.
You are above every other. Your love amazes me. You created every beautiful color for everyone to see. I want the world to know, I want my life to show just what your love has done for me. In your love I'm free, in your love I'm forgiven, forgiven. Your love it makes me sing, your love it gives me a reason to lift my voice, yeah. I lift my voice, yeah. You are the giver of all things good and perfect. I give you all of my praise, God, 'cause only you deserve it. I want the world to know, I want my life to show just what your love has done for me. In your love I'm free, in your love I'm forgiven, forgiven. Your love it makes me sing, your love it gives me a reason to lift my voice, yeah. I lift my voice, yeah. I sing and dance, I clap my hands, I lift my voice, I lift my voice. I sing and dance, I clap my hands, I lift my voice, I lift my voice. In your love I'm free, in your love I'm forgiven, forgiven. Your love it makes me sing, your love it gives me a reason to lift my voice, yeah. I 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 lift my voice, yeah.
Thank you so much everyone for worshiping with us this morning. As we continue to learn about forgiveness, has anybody ever had a time where it's really difficult to forgive someone or they hurt you and you just did not want to forgive them? I know we've all been there, but Jesus talks about forgiveness and how important it is to forgive others even when they've hurt us. Last week we heard the story about the young son that asked for his inheritance and he took off. And what happened? It wasn't what he thought it was going to be like. He ran out of money and came back home. Instead of the father being upset, he was super happy that he came home. The story does not end there. There is one person that was not happy of his return, and that's his older brother. Let's watch.
Hey party people! I'm Erica and actually I'm planning a party to celebrate fixing up my new apartment! All month long we've been talking about forgiveness. Forgiveness is deciding that someone who has wronged you doesn't have to pay. Forgiveness can clean up some pretty bad messes, which is exactly what I've been doing around this place. So before we get this party started, I'm going to show you one last do-it-yourself hack involving my new kitchen table. My friend Chris volunteered to help me move it into the apartment, which was great of him until the incident. It It was Chris's idea to turn the table sideways to get it in the door. I told him it wouldn't work, but he did it anyways and broke one of the legs. So guess what? I was right and he was wrong. Now look at my table. Meh. Ugh. So it was Chris's fault that I have to spend my whole afternoon showing you how to make a table more level. Thanks a lot, Chris. Guess who's not getting invited to the party now? It's you, Chris. Let's do this thing. Huh, that was pretty easy, actually. Let's check this out. Test 1. Test 2. Ooh, yay! Last but not least, test 3. Oh man, so pretty good. Don't think that lets you off the hook, Chris. You're still missing out on my party. Today's story is about a guy who wasn't so sure he wanted to party. My party's going to be great, by the way. We're going to have music and games and snacks. And although Chris would usually be the one to bring the snacks, plus he plays the best games and picks really good music. Ugh! If Chris isn't invited, maybe I'll be the one who misses out.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. And now for an amazing story, inspired by the book of Luke, chapter 15, verses 21 through 32.
When Jesus wanted to share something important, he often told a story to explain what he meant. Now one day, the religious leaders were grumbling because Jesus chose to bring in outcasts and people who did things wrong.
He hangs out with sinners and even, eats with them.
Jesus knew their hearts. These men thought they were better than everyone else. So he told them the story of a man and his 2 sons. Now the youngest son asked for his share of his father's money, and he took off. He spent his money on parties and all other stuff. But then the money ran out, and he ended up at a miserable job feeding pigs, while he himself starved. Desperate, the young son returned home, planning on begging for mercy and working as a servant. Instead, his father welcomed him with open arms and even planned a party for his lost son in his honor. Ultimately, it seemed like a happy ending. But Jesus wasn't finished with the story yet.
The older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing.
If Jesus were to tell that story to us today, it might sound something like this. The older brother, let's call him Will. He spent the entire day working hard, perhaps plowing up the packed dirt on a brand new field.
Come on, Bessie. Just one more row. Gotta finish before the light goes.
As the sun slipped behind the hill, Will finished breaking the dirt on his last long row.
I just need some water and a quiet meal and bed.
Will trudged slowly back to the house and left Bessie in the barn with a bag of oats.
If my slacker brother hadn't run off, I wouldn't have to work so hard.
As Will neared the house, he was surprised to see the lights blazing from every window.
What is going on?
Will stopped, trying to make sense of all the activity and the music. Then, the back door opened. One of the servants stepped outside to throw out a bowl of scrap, and she turned to go back inside.
Wait.
The servant paused.
What's happening?
It's just the party for your brother.
The what for my what?
You haven't heard? Your brother showed up this afternoon. Your dad had the fattest calf killed and roasted to celebrate. He is so thankful Jake's safe.
A party? My dad is throwing a party?
I'll let the family know you're back.
What? No. I am not coming in.
The servant wrinkled her nose.
Whew. You want someone to run you a bath first?
Leave me alone.
The servant hurried back inside. Will paced as his exhaustion vanished and anger coursed through his veins.
I work all day. Every day. Has Dad ever thrown a party for me?
Will stalked back and forth, fuming as the back door opened up again. His father hurried out.
Will, here you are.
Well, look at that. You decided to remember I exist.
Your brother is back. He's okay.
Well, that is just fantastic.
We're all celebrating, but it's not complete without you. Come on inside.
Will turned and looked directly at his father, eyes blazing.
All these years, I've worked non-stop for you. I've done every single thing you asked, and you never even given me a goat to have a party with my friends.
You never said you wanted.
This son of yours runs away with your money and wastes it like a fool. Then he shows up and you roast a fatted calf and throw a giant shindig.
Will's father sighed, took a deep breath, and looked Will directly in the face.
My son, you are always with me. Everything I have is yours, but we had to celebrate and be glad. This brother of yours was dead for all we knew, and now he's alive again. He was lost, and now he is found.
Look, I'm real tired. I plowed the entire north field.
Thank you.
I think I'll just go to bed.
Won't you come into the party? Just for a few minutes.
Will hesitated. He could see the people through the window, dancing, eating, full of joy. The light and the music called them.
Please, Will.
We don't know if the older brother ever listened to his father. We don't know if he ever forgave his younger brother. We don't know if he chose to go and enjoy the party. But what we do know is that if he stayed outside, he missed out on many good things.
The older brother in Jesus' story totally missed out. Being right was way more important to him than repairing the relationships with his father and brother. The father, on the other hand, forgave his son and threw a big party! Forgiveness is something we should celebrate. Think about it. In the beginning, God decorated for the biggest party ever when he made paradise for his people. But over time, people got further and further and further away from paradise. So, God sent Jesus. Because of what Jesus did for us, we can be forgiven. Jesus even said that when someone turns to God, there's great joy in heaven. Maybe like a party! When you forgive someone in your heart, that's worth celebrating. I mean, forgiveness can save relationships. It can even make someone else feel like they matter. And forgiveness can take the weight off your shoulders too. But when you hold grudges and you don't forgive, you can miss out on all that stuff. That's why the one thing to remember today is this. When you don't forgive, you miss out. So, of course, I'm going to forgive my friend Chris for breaking my table even though I was right and he was wrong. I don't want to miss out on our party. And I definitely don't want to miss out on our friendship. That's way more important to me than being right. Well, that's all for now. I've got to go get ready for a party. See you around.
Hello, friends. This month, we have been learning about forgiveness. We've learned 4 different stories Jesus taught us about forgiveness. To help us recap, our friends have sent in some beautiful pictures. Let's take a look.
Our first picture was sent in by Isabella Cruz. What story does this picture remind you of? If you guessed The Unmerciful Servant, the story where the king forgave all the servant owed him and asked for nothing in return, just like God forgives us, you're right. Forgive others because God forgives you. Our next picture was sent in by Kai Kress. What story do you think this is telling us? It's the story of Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was not a very nice man. When Jesus came to his town, Jesus wanted to go to his house for dinner. People were so shocked that Jesus wanted to eat with the man who was so mean. Jesus forgave Zacchaeus for his mistakes and changed his heart. Zacchaeus went on to change the people around him by giving them all their money back. When you forgive others, it can change them. Our third picture is by Julian Sandoval. This picture is to remind us of Matthew 5, verse 23-24. So if you are about to offer your gift to God at the altar, and there you remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. Go at once and make peace with your brother, and then come back and offer your gift to God. We should go to our friends first to work on forgiveness before we do anything else. Take the first step to forgiving others. We have two pictures for our next story. The first one is by Riley's Tejan of the father seeing his lost son coming home, running out to meet him. Our second picture is by Savannah Moosman, showing the son asking for forgiveness. These pictures are reminding us that everyone needs to be forgiven. Our final story is by Nalia Menginsong. It's the second part of the story of the lost son. After the son returned home, the dad wanted to throw a huge party. The older brother was not very happy about it and was almost going to miss out on the celebration. He learned that he should be happy that his brother returned home and asked for forgiveness. When you don't forgive, you miss out. Forgiveness is a choice. It's deciding that someone who has wronged you doesn't have to pay. I hope you'll choose to forgive, like God forgave us. God's forgiveness has changed us for better, and your forgiveness may change others. Everyone needs forgiveness. And don't miss out. Forgive. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Love you. Bye.
Hey, middle school family. How are you guys doing? Good to see you. It's Teacher Lisa here, and
Teacher Andy.
we miss you, and we hope you're doing well. This is our third week being apart. Hopefully next week we are definitely going to be setting up our Zoom session, so please be on lookout for that. Sorry we have not got to that yet.
So before we get started this week, we wanted to have a little discussion starter. And the question that we're going to throw out to you is, what is your favorite brand of shoe? So what are some of the brands that you like to wear? I used to wear K-Swiss when I was in middle school and high school. There was a brand called LA Gear, Gucci, Ferragamo, but the one that I wear the most now is Reebok only because they have the best selection of wide shoe, and I've got really wide duck feet. So that's the brand that I wear.
All right. Or what about Nike or Adidas or Vans? Those are pretty popular brands right now. Or the new one that the kids in my middle school, they want the Yeezys. I don't know. They're not very pretty to me, but popular. But I think probably the one that I wear the most would be, out of those, would probably be Nike or my running shoes, which is Brooks. But
So there's a lot of different cool brands out there. And I'm sure we all have a different opinion about which of those is the best or the coolest. But in a similar way, we're going to have, or we might have, different opinions about other people. So this week we're going to go ahead and watch a video, and it's going to talk about opinions that we may have about people, and whether they are based on something actually true, or if it's an opinion that we have even though we don't really know the person. But anyway, go ahead and watch the video, and then we'll see you on the other side, and we'll have a few questions for you like we always do.
Does your school have cliques? You know, those groups of people who they just bond together based on things they have in common? I mean, at my school there was the band clique, you know, or the sports clique, or like or the smart kids, me, duh. Or even the church kids, me, again. I mean, I think I was like all those kids at one point or another. See, while you might get along well and have a ton in common with the people in your clique, you might have a lot of strong opinions about the people in other cliques, the ones who are maybe a little different from you. So in middle school, I had my group of friends, there were whatever, there were a bunch of groups of friends, basically whoever you sat with at the lunch table, right? You know what I'm talking about. So there's this one kid, we'll call him Joe. Now Joe, he was not a part of my clique. We didn't really hang out that much. When Joe and I did hang out, it wasn't really the best of times. See, Joe wasn't really nice, like, at all. So anytime I would run into Joe, do you think he was handing out candy bars? No. Joe was actually kind of a bully. And not only to me, but a couple kids in our grade. And every time I ran into him, I thought, this kid is just a big meanie. Man, he's just the worst. How could anybody ever want to hang out with him? This kid was just never fun to be around. He was never nice to anyone. I mean, this guy was just kind of mean. He was rude, impolite, young gentleman. Here's the truth. We all have those kinds of opinions about other people, right? I mean, oftentimes it's easy for us to form opinions or assume we know things to be true about people who are different than us. I mean, sure, we don't know them all that well, but we definitely think we do. And what we think to be true of them becomes our opinion of who they actually are. Think for just a minute about the cliques in and around your school. You probably have assumptions or opinions about each and every one of them. Maybe you've thought things like, the rich kids are, all the people on the sports teams are, the smart kids are, those cheerleaders are, the band kids are. And I bet right now you're filling in each of these blanks with what you think you know about each one of these groups of people. I mean, we all do it. Even here at church. I bet you found yourself looking around and noticing cliques or groups of people and have thoughts like, the kids who always come to church, or those students from school, they're always, or those kids in the younger grades, they are always. Again, we form opinions about these people based on our assumptions. And just like that, our opinions become facts. And what's really tricky is that those opinions or assumptions come from all kinds of places. Maybe you think something about a certain group of people because of a past experience you had. Maybe they bullied you, or hurt you, or embarrassed you, or just weren't all that kind. Maybe you saw them act a certain way or do a certain thing, but whatever it was, that experience shaped your opinion. Or maybe for you, it really is just an assumption. You don't actually know the things you believe or think about that person or group of people are true. You just think it might be true. And for you, that assumption is enough to change your opinion. Or maybe for you, it's an opinion based in jealousy or insecurity. Yep, me? Jealous? Insecure? Ha! Never. A lot of the time, actually. Those other people have something you want or wish you had. And because you don't, you have negative feelings or opinions about them. Whatever the reason, when it comes to people who are different than us, people we don't really understand, we let our judgments and opinions affect how we view them. That's a problem for a lot of reasons. I mean, for starters, our judgments aren't usually nice and kind thoughts. We aren't typically describing people we don't really know with words like awesome or so cool, or they're just so fun to be around. Not only does that mean we're judging or seeing them negatively, but it also means we probably aren't going to give them a chance in the future. I mean, we've already made up our minds, right? We don't need to get to know them or learn anything else about them because in our minds, we already know who they are. But here's what I think we're missing. When we base our view of someone else on one experience or one opinion or one assumption, we aren't seeing the whole story. We aren't seeing the whole person. Okay, so there's a story in the Bible that I think can help us change the way we see other people. It's found in the book of John, which was written by one of Jesus's closest friends and followers named John. John was one of 12 men who walked closest with Jesus and learned from him during his ministry on earth. John wrote down what he actually saw, heard, and experienced as a follower of Jesus. And that's what we have to look at today. When we pick up our story, Jesus was teaching to a group of people when several religious leaders interrupted him with a question. "Teacher," they said to Jesus, "this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?" So basically, these religious leaders came to Jesus with a question about a woman who was caught sleeping with someone who wasn't her husband. That's so awkward. And the religious leaders, they knew the rules. They understood what the law said. Back then, when somebody committed adultery, they'd be stoned. And that basically means people would literally throw stones at them until they died. What? These religious leaders thought they knew exactly what Jesus was going to say about this woman. They were so sure that they interrupted his teaching just to get the answer. And they knew the answer was not only going to prove they were right about who this woman was, but also show how much better they were than she was. Now, can we all admit that we, just like the religious leaders, have a tendency to think better of ourselves than we do about others? We tend to see what other people do or who they are much differently than the way we see ourselves. And because of that, we've put space between us and them. We let our opinions and judgments define who they are, and we slowly move ourselves away from them. That's exactly what these religious leaders were doing with this woman. That's probably what they thought Jesus would do too. Instead, Jesus did something I don't think anybody expected. The religious leaders kept demanding an answer. So he stood up again and said, "All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone." Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. My man had no time for these guys, not enough time. He sat and wrote in the dust. See, Jesus challenged these religious leaders to look inward at themselves and their own sin instead of just judging others. Jesus told them that the one who hadn't sinned, who had never messed up or ever made a mistake or ever done anything wrong, was the only one who had the right to throw a stone at this woman. And as you can imagine, no one there besides Jesus fell into that category. While they were standing there, the religious leaders felt convicted and their argument shut down completely. Instead of throwing stones like they planned, John wrote, After they heard what Jesus said, they slipped away one by one by one. And soon, it was only Jesus left standing with this woman. Here's what happened next. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" "No, Lord," she said. And Jesus said, "Neither do I. Go and sin no more." While the religious leaders had judged this woman on only one thing they knew about her, Jesus saw something else. Jesus saw this woman as so much more than one bad decision. She was so much more than one opinion or one judgment or one experience. Jesus knew the whole story, and he loved her no matter what. Nobody in this story was really who everyone else thought they'd be. Everyone judged this woman as bad, but Jesus showed that she was worthy of forgiveness and a future. Everyone judged these religious leaders as good, but Jesus showed that they were no better than the woman they came to stone. The truth is, we are all made in the image of God, and that alone makes us worthy of his love and forgiveness. That's the way Jesus saw other people, and he calls us to see them in the same way. Jesus wants us to remember that there's more to other people than just our opinions of them. Kind of like my friend Joe we talked about earlier, who was kind of mean to me. You see, later in the school year, another kid was picking on me, and out of nowhere, Joe came up and stood in between the two of us and defended me. He told the other kid to walk away and leave me alone. But I thought Joe was just mean, but maybe he's not always like that. Maybe my one experience with him isn't who he actually is. You see, reducing someone to just one judgment or opinion causes you to miss so much. I mean, those band kids at your school, maybe they're really funny, but you have no idea because you've judged them as boring. Those cheerleaders in the lunchroom might be the nicest people in your grade, but you just assume they're mean, and that's become who they are in your eyes. Those kids in your small group who come to church all the time, maybe they're struggling with the same things you are, but you'll never know because they're perfect in your opinion. You might be missing out on so much about someone by simply letting your opinions and judgments define them. So my challenge to you is to remember this: there's more to others than just our opinions of them. To help you remember, I want you to try one of these two things this week. First, worry about yourself. Yeah, I'm calling you out. When you find yourself about to form an opinion or make a judgment about someone else, worry about yourself instead. Just as Jesus reminded those religious leaders, we've all got our own mistakes and missteps to worry about. So instead of focusing on someone else's behavior or interests or choices that you don't understand, focus on what you're doing and how you can better live out the life God has for you. Or maybe remove the judgment. Think about who in your world that you've judged or formed an opinion about without truly getting to know them. What if instead of judging them with what you think you know about them, you let the facts define them? What if you only focus on what you know to be true about them? Now, while you may not know much about the other person or group of people right away, you do know this for sure: they are children of God, made in his image and deserving of his love. Just start there. Then, instead of making assumptions, think of them with compassion, love, and kindness and grace, just like Jesus did. Remember, there's more to others than just our opinions of them. As you head out today, ask yourself this question: what's one way I form opinions about people who are different than me?
Hi guys, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that part of the video. All right, so this is our last series, the last part, of this series. And the bottom line, remember, is there are more to others than just our opinions of them. Okay, so really think about that. There are more to others than just our opinions of them. And so now we're going to give you some questions that we would like you to really think about And so the first question is, have you ever had an opinion about someone that you didn't really know? Have you ever had an opinion about someone that you didn't really know? So if I had to apply this to something that maybe you guys could think about, and because you're all students. So as you know, I'm a teacher, and so I teach 7th and 8th grade. And so the 6th grade students coming up, we hear a lot about them from the 6th grade teachers. And so we're always thinking about these students that we hear about over and over again, maybe the ones that are giving trouble or the ones that are good athletes or something. And so we tend to think what they're saying is true, right? The other teachers. And so as a teacher, as a 7th and teaching 7th and 8th graders, I have to make sure that I'm very careful and I don't form opinions based on just what the other teachers are saying. And that I need to form my own opinion based on my own interactions with the 7th and 8th graders that are coming up. So as a teacher, I have to really put a conscious effort into doing that and give everybody a fair chance when they're coming up.
So that would lead us to our second question. Have you ever felt like someone else had an opinion about you, even though they didn't really know you? So I actually had this happen to me. We have someone on our staff at our office. She's a great staff person. I'm really glad to have her. But when she first started, she thought that I was the meanest, grumpiest doctor, and she was really having second thoughts about having accepted the job at our office, and she wasn't sure if she could last under those situations. And I had no idea that I was projecting this to her. Generally, I try to be nicer to the new staff whenever we get one, but I guess for some reason at that point in time, maybe I wasn't particularly nice to her, or at least as nice to her as she thought I should have been. So she had a very negative view of me. But now she said somehow along the way, something clicked and then her perception changed. And now we actually get along really well. And like I said, I'm really glad to have her. She's great with our patients, and she really knows her stuff as far as the insurance goes. But that was something that kind of struck me, that I didn't realize what kind of image that I was projecting. And she was forming an opinion of me that thankfully I was able to change over time. So that's something else you want to consider.
Right. All right. And the third and final question we would like you to think about is, who is one person in your life that you have an opinion about but don't really know? So we would really like you to, we're going to give you a challenge this week, guys. You up for a challenge? I hope so. So we would really like you to think of that one person in your life that you seem to have an opinion about, but you don't really know them. So think about that one person, and then we would like you to actually do this.
So, these days, with all the difficulties that we're all going through, some of the people are not handling this as well as others. Some people are actually quite stressed out about the situation that they're going through. So we'd like to see if you could possibly reach out to somebody that maybe you don't really know, and just see how they're doing. Ask them, how are you? How are things going? We're all in this together. Try to hang in there. There's an end in sight. Things will get better, and just try to be encouraging to them. And who knows, maybe this would lead to another new friendship for you. But just being able to, open that door a little bit and start a conversation. So if you can, try to see if you can make that effort this week to reach out to one person that isn't on your normal friends list.
morning, North Hills High School Sabbath School class. This is Teacher Heather, just hoping that you're doing well and wanting to let you know that Teacher George, Teacher Monica, and I all miss you guys a lot right now. I hope you guys are safe and healthy and staying in your house, getting some social distancing done, but still maintaining contact and maintaining your network with your friends and with your family. So today we are going to talk about dating. It is week 4 of our dating series called Save the Date. So we'll watch that video in a few minutes. And I also wanted to let you know we have a Zoom get-together coming up. So watch your messaging for that. Take care, guys.
Let's talk about dates. No, not those. Yeah, those. I mean, look how much fun they're having. Dates are great, right? Until they're not. Like, maybe he said, "Sup, bruh?" to your dad. Maybe she won't stay off her phone. Maybe he won't stop taking selfies. Maybe he said you remind him of someone special. His ex-girlfriend. Yeah, next. It can make you wish dates came with an escape button. But there's a way to make dating a better experience. We can have coffee without conflict. We can go to dinner without wanting to dash. We can save the date.
Hey, this is Risa. Back when my parents were dating, when they wanted to get to know more about each other, they actually just had to talk to one another. Now, if I want to learn anything about anyone, I just call my little sister, and within minutes, she'll get on their Instagram, their Twitter, their TikTok, their Snapchat, and I will know all I need to know about them. And all of us in this room have a friend like that. So we know that we can learn a ton about people by simply looking at their online posts. We'll probably learn their favorite food. At some point in time, we've all done this. Maybe you ordered some amazing nachos, you put it down, you take a pic, and you share it with the world. Or maybe a barista put in a little extra effort and did some foam art. Or maybe you had a 3-day Chick-fil-A week problem. I've done that. Or maybe you've discovered cotton candy grapes and knew that you had to alert your friends about it. But seriously, like, how are those even possible? Also, you'll find out what they're into. Basketball, lacrosse, volleyball. You might post pics of practices or games, but even if you don't, you know who will? Your mom or her friends. Obsessed with a particular rapper or Netflix show, your Snapchat will probably show it at some point, or your friend will tag you in a post about it. The truth is, if you want to know what somebody is into, you can usually find out with a quick search. Finally, we'll learn about their relationship status. Maybe you have a million photos on your grid, maybe it's just 2, but you'll probably show up on someone else's grid, story, or feed. It's pretty easy to find out who you're hanging out with. Now listen, I'm not trying to creep you out, but I'm just saying, most of us have our business out there for people to see. And even if you aren't one of the ones talking about it, posting it, or putting it on Snapchat, we're pretty okay with our likes and dislikes being a public kind of thing. There's one exception though. Here's what I mean. Say I talked to one of you recently and you told me who you wanted to date, and right here, I said that name in front of everyone. That would be super uncomfortable. Because even if everything we like or dislike can go public, when it comes to who we like and who we want to date, that's usually something we don't exactly want to broadcast. The same is kind of true when it comes to those we're already dating. I mean, you probably wouldn't mind if people knew you were dating. In fact, your Instagram and story is probably full of pictures of the two of you together. But those are just pictures. When it comes to the relationship stuff, like your conversations and your inside jokes, there's a good chance the piece of your relationship, maybe even most of your relationship, you'd rather keep just between the two of you. I'm not saying that that's always a bad thing. I'm just saying that most of us want to keep most of our dating pretty low key. There are probably a lot of reasons why we keep the details of these relationships low key, but I want to talk about just a few. For starters, it might be that this is an area where you feel kind of uncomfortable. Maybe it's embarrassing to put yourself out there like that. Maybe you're talking to someone but you're not sure how you feel yet. Maybe it's a new thing and you're not sure where the relationship is going yet. Maybe you can't put it out there that you're hanging out with somebody because you're not sure what you would say if somebody else asked you about it. Or this is an area where you tend to dislike input. Maybe when you first met this person, you wanted to debrief with everyone and get feedback. But now that you've been in the relationship for a while, you feel like you've got it covered. No more input needed. Which leads me to my third reason. We're afraid that the people closest to us might disapprove of our relationship. Maybe your crush doesn't have the best reputation, but when he's with you, he's different. He's not the same guy that people see at school or in group situations, and your friends won't understand that. So it's a lot easier to just keep the whole thing to yourself. And speaking of disapproval, another big reason we may keep our dating status to ourselves is the fourth reason. Last, we're afraid our parents might disapprove. In fact, for some of you, there's a 100% chance no matter how great the girl or guy is, no matter how many things they do well, your parents will disapprove. And because your parents are never shy about critiquing your choices, if they knew who you were dating, you would never hear the end of it. So it's a lot easier and quieter to just keep it to yourself. Plus, your parents experienced dating a really, really long time ago, so it feels like they can't really understand what you're going through now. All of our pushback to letting people into this area of our lives makes sense. Because let's be honest, there are some really good reasons for not making every moment of your life, especially your dating life, public knowledge. At the same time, you're all mature people, you're smart people, and you can probably see how this nobody knows approach can backfire and lead to some either minor or major relationship disasters. We've been calling this series Save the Date, and the whole point has been to save our dating lives from things that could make them less great or less good for us. And this week, we're gonna keep talking about that through the wise words of a guy named Solomon. So today, we're taking another look at the book of Proverbs, which is a big collection of wise insights on just about every topic you can imagine. The main author of the Proverbs is a man named Solomon, an ancient king who led God's people. The Bible tells us that he was the wisest man who ever lived. So if this guy has something to say, I'm probably gonna listen. So Solomon says this: "For lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors." This is not everyday language. I'm assuming that the only advisors you know is your school guidance counselor or your academic advisor. But even though the language sounds different than what you hear in everyday life, the message is the same and still relevant to every human. Here's what Solomon is saying: if a nation doesn't have enough advisors giving them advice, it falls apart. And the same is true in the rest of our lives. If we only rely on ourselves for guidance and direction in different areas of our life, at some point, we're going to fall. So imagine if all the light went out in the room you're in right now. For most of us, it'd be very hard to see. So what we would do is we would pull out our phones and there'd be a flashlight on it. We'd turn on the flashlight and be able to see maybe just a few feet in front of us. But if everyone in the room turned on their flashlight, the entire room would be filled with light. Life is the same way. When we only use our perspective, things are limited. There's only so much we can see. We don't recognize the whole picture. And as a result, we can easily trip up and make mistakes. And the thing to remember is this: we don't get tripped up because we're trying to make mistakes. We don't make it a goal to stumble. It happens because we're relying solely on our own reasoning, our own perspective, and our own experience, because we've kept people in the dark. And that is exactly what Solomon is saying. And when we live a life and make decisions on our own, it's like we're using our own flashlight to navigate the way forward. We only have our own experience, our own intelligence, and our own understanding, but those things only go so far. In nearly every area of our lives, we make better decisions, we get less tripped up, and we have an easier time of doing things if we invite somebody else in to shine a light and help us see what we could not see before. That's especially true of our dating lives. If we rely only on what we think and what we see in a dating situation, we're going to miss the big picture. We won't see what's going on around us, which can lead us to some poor decisions and not so great judgment calls, and ultimately some regrets. But if we're willing to invite someone else in and share with them what's really going on and invite them in to let them shine a light in our dating part of our lives, we'll have a much clearer view of where we're going and what we're doing. So basically what I'm saying is, don't date in the dark. Once again, you're a smart person. You have a general handle on things. I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm just saying that there's no way you can know everything. No one can. It's hard to see a situation from every angle, and that includes your dating life. You only know what you know. So if I were to say another way, you only know what you've experienced yourself, and you've only experienced what's happened in your own life, in your own family, your childhood, and your school. And that's awesome, because all of those experiences make you who you are. But there are people around you who have experienced life and relationships in a very different way, and those people can be so helpful to you, whether you're dating now or planning to date in the future. Solomon knew this, and that's why he suggested having many advisors as a nation and as a person. It can save a lot of parts of your life from hurt, regret, and especially in your dating life. But how do you find many advisors in your life? That kind of sounds weird. Well, when it comes to your dating life, let's just pick one or two, and here are a few ideas to get you started. Think of someone who could be objective. We all have those friends who will always agree with our decisions, no matter who we decide to date. But we don't want someone that will just tell us what we want to hear. An advisor isn't one of those people. We need people who are willing to be honest with us, even when they think we might disagree, especially when we might disagree. We all need voices who will be real with us when necessary. Find someone older than you. Okay, let's just be honest about something. Being older doesn't make someone smarter. We all know that. But wisdom is different from just being smart. Wisdom comes from experience. Sure, you can get advice from people who have the same amount of wisdom as you, maybe 14, 15, 17 years worth, or you can have 20, 30, 40 years worth of wisdom because you asked someone older. And chances are one of those candidates is in this church or even in the room that you're in. Lastly, reach out. This is the biggest step. Even though we know what we might need, taking the action to make it happen is hard. It may sound scary, but I'd be willing to bet that any leader here would be more than happy to simply have a conversation with you. And they're not gonna put you on blast, tell your friends, or make you feel weird. And a conversation or two will help you identify if this is someone who could give you honest, objective feedback on what you're experiencing in your dating life and in life in general. The majority of us in this room who are not currently dating someone, I know you may be thinking, none of this applies to me. I'm not dating anyone and have zero possibility on the horizon. It is thirsty out here. But even if you're not dating someone, chances are you will one day, which means you can get a head start today by finding the kind of people you can count on to give you advice and wisdom for future relationships. You'll never regret having a lot of advisors, so start finding them now because you never know when you'll need them later. Living in the dark is never a good idea, but dating in the dark is particularly a bad idea because who you date and how you navigate those relationships will impact other areas as well. It sounds dramatic, but it's true. The quality of your high school years and probably several years after can be affected by how you handle your dating life now. So today, begin to think of someone who could possibly be a good candidate for advisor. Think of someone who can give you honest advice on everything, but especially dating. Reach out to them, let them listen to you, and then listen to what they have to say in return, because dating is better when you don't do it in the dark.
Hi everybody, Teacher George here. Hope you guys are all doing well and enjoyed the video. Just wanted to ask a couple of quick follow-up questions to the video. Whether it's dating, whether it's relationships, or just life in general, we're all going to need somebody that we need to turn to seek advice from. So the question is, what do you look for in that person? Do they need to be your contemporary? Do they need to be somebody older than you? Do they need to be somebody you respect? Do they need to be honest? Do they need to be trustworthy? What is it that you look for in that person? The next question is, when you're getting this advice, how do you know it's good? What is it about that person that makes you understand that what they're saying is good advice for you? And the last, and this one's the most important one, why is it sometimes the most difficult to implement that good advice into our lives? We all struggle with this sometimes, and it'll come up in the next few years for you guys as you guys head off into college and as you guys grow into young adults. With that, I want to wish you guys a happy Sabbath and hope you guys have a great week. Please don't forget to go ahead and send me your prayer requests and praise reports so I can send them back out to you guys and you guys can pray for everybody during this week. Keep your eye out for the daily devotionals that are being sent through the Remind app. And I want to ask you guys to take a moment of time this week. See if you can remember somebody that is giving you great advice from our church, whether it was an adult, whether it was a parent, whether it was one of your friends. Reach out to them, tell them thank you, and I'm sure they'd love to hear from you guys. Have a great week.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good time at home. I know you're probably in your pajamas, just hanging out. Want you to sing with us, though. Let's sing. Who are we that you would be mindful of us? What do you see? It's worth looking our way. We are free in ways that we never should be. Sweet release from the grips of these chains. Like hinges straining from the weight, my heart no longer can keep from singing. All that is within me cries, for you alone be glorified. Emmanuel, God with us. My heart sings a brand new song. The dead is paid, these chains are gone. Emmanuel, hearts don't deserve your glory. Still you show a love we cannot afford. Sing like hinges straining from the weight. My heart no longer can keep from singing. All that is within me cries, for you alone be glorified. Emmanuel, God with us. My heart sings a brand new song. The dead is paid, these chains are gone. Emmanuel, God with us. Sing, such a tiny offering compared to Calvary. Nevertheless, we lay it at your feet. Sing that again. Such a tiny offering. Such a tiny offering compared to Calvary. Nevertheless, we lay it at your feet. All that is within me cries, for you alone be glorified. Emmanuel, God with us. My heart sings a brand new song. The debt is paid, these chains are gone. Emmanuel, God with us. One more time. All that is within me cries, for you alone be glorified. Emmanuel, God with us. So before all of this stay-at-home thing happened, we had started counting down the weeks towards Easter. Just kind of want to get back to that again. You know, John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son to come down to this world, to live in it, to go through all the joy, the pain, the temptations, the highs, the lows, all of that stuff that we have to go through to overcome this world, to die, to rise again, just so that we can have everlasting life." I think that's something that we need to celebrate. Not just during Easter, but every single day of our lives. You guys know this song, sing it with us.
Jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. Oh, how he loves
sing it.
He is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. Oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us all.
So we are his portion and he is our prize, drawn to redemption by the grace in his eyes. If grace is an ocean, we're all sinking. So heaven meets earth like an unforeseen kiss. My heart turns violently inside of my chest. I don't have time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way he loves us. Oh, how 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 he loves. Let's sing it. He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. One more time. He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Come on, let's sing this song together. Christ is my reward in all of my devotion. Now there's nothing in this world that could ever satisfy. Through every trial, my soul will sing, no turning back. I've been set free. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. salvation, and this hope will never fail. Heaven is our home. Through every storm, my soul will sing. Jesus is here. To God be the glory. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. Sing that again. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back. No turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back. No turning back. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. One more time. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. I want to make this our prayer this morning. Let's sing Give Me Jesus.
In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
Sing Give Me Jesus.
Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. Give me Jesus.
And when I am alone,
to die. Oh, when I come to die, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. Give me Jesus. Sing it again. Give me Jesus. Jesus, you can have all this world. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. Give me Jesus.
Father God, thank you for sending Jesus down into this world. Thank you for looking after us. Thank you for fighting our battles. Father, I pray for everyone that's out there that's hurting today. I pray for everyone that is sick. I pray for everyone who's been worshiping you this morning. May your will be done. We just worship you. Amen.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and you're always glad they came. You want to be where you can see troubles are all the same. You want to go where everybody knows your name.
Good morning, North Hills community. I'm so glad that you're here back in my living room, and I'm excited that you have decided to take the time to tune in today to be once again an online community. I hope you're doing well in your living room, wherever you might be. Maybe you're hanging out on the back porch this morning. I don't know, but wherever you are, I hope you're staying safe in this new world that we're discovering. If you're a first-time viewer this morning, if this is your first time, maybe you haven't even been to North Hills before, we're just really glad that you came to join us, that you tuned in. Maybe you followed a Facebook link or a YouTube link that someone sent. But if you'd let us know specifically, after this is all over, just head on over to our website, inhillschurch.org. And if you just go to inhillschurch.org, there's a connection card there that you can fill out. We'd love to know that you were here. We'd love to help you out. Like, one of the things that we're all doing together is on Wednesday nights, and we just started this last week, we're all reading the book, The 12 People You Love. We're reading this together and discussing it every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And we would love for you to join us. We'll even send you a book. You just got to let us know. So either contact us on Facebook or through our website, and we would love to connect you. We've got a lot going on. Even after the service here on our online stream today, we're going to be connecting on Zoom. So take a look at Facebook for that link, or check your email. We're all just going to, anybody that wants to stop in, say hello. I know we don't get to see one another's faces as often as we normally would. So we'd love for you to be with us. Additionally, I just want to bring up, we've had a few people question and ask, hey, what do I do with my offering? Can I still send it in? Can I still donate? And yeah, we're still trying to do and make the best frugal decisions in this climate, but also make sure that we're holding everybody together in the best ways we can figure out, trying out some new technologies and things like that, and then trying to figure out what we can do as a community for our community. So if you'd like to donate to North Hills, all you got to do is go to our website, inhills.org/donate, or you can just mail us a check, and the mail is still being delivered. So we're so glad you're with us. This COVID-19 stuff is kind of crazy. In fact, one of the things that kind of blows me away is I was looking at some things and came across this quote from Martin Luther, the Reformer. And back in 1527 in Wittenberg, Germany, Martin Luther had a case of what we call the bubonic plague. They called it the Black Plague. Actually came through town. This moment where they were all afraid for their own health, the health of their family members, things of that nature. And I actually have this quote here from Martin Luther during this time that I thought you might find interesting along with me. He said this, he said, "Therefore, I shall ask God mercifully to protect us. Then I shall fumigate," which is what they did to kind of get rid of any virus basically in the air, though they didn't know that that's what they were doing quite as sharply as we do today. "Help purify the air, administer medicine, and take. I shall avoid places and persons where my presence is not needed in order to become contaminated and thus perchance infect and pollute others, and so cause their death as a result of my negligence." So like, here's Martin Luther, safe at home, right? He's staying at home just like you and I. We're all hanging out, just trying to keep our community safe. And then he kind of goes on and talks about faith. "If God should wish to take me, he will surely find me. And I have done what he does, and I have done what he is expected of me. And so I am not responsible for either my own death or the death of others. If my neighbor needs me, however, I shall not avoid the place or the person, but will go freely as stated above." So he'll go freely with the precautions. And then he says this, and this is great. "See, this is such a God-fearing faith, because it is neither brash nor foolhardy, and does not tempt God." Basically, he's saying, this is our faith, that we trust God, but we also make the smart decisions. We want to do what's best because we represent God and God's love and actions towards our community. And so, as I know there's a lot of angst and a lot of trepidation, and who knows how long we'll kind of be in this process. You can kind of check out our last couple of weeks messages. We've talked about fear and some things like that, but this is what we're in, and we're in this together, and it's great to be a part of this with you. I think, whether our doors are open or closed, whether we stream into your living room or not, it's not about whether we do it, it's about why we do it. I think, why do we stream? Why do we continue to gather together in an online space? What is it about this gathering together that is important? And so, what I want to just kind of challenge you with this thought. Why, when we talk about why it is we get together, why are you in your pajamas maybe this morning tuning in with us? Why are we together in this every week? And in order to do that, I just want you to think back, what is the reason you first walked through the doors of a church? Maybe it was when you were a kid, maybe as an adult and someone invited you. What was the reason you first walked into a faith community? And then kind of the follow-up question, what is it that made you stay? Maybe you were came in as a child, but you're still here. Why did you stay? Why did you continue to tune in to be part of a community of faith? Why are you here today? Because I think that question ties in really well with what it is we want to talk about today. I believe in the power of the church. I believe that the church, as the body of Christ, is the hope for the world, because Jesus is in us and works through us. But it's not always really clear. It's not always very clean. Sometimes we have a lot of hope, and sometimes we don't give people much hope. So Paul, check this out. Paul called it Christ in you, the hope of glory. Christ in you, the hope of glory. Basically, what he's saying in that is well, if Jesus is in us and working through us, then we're the hope of the world. But sometimes the church doesn't sound like it's full of much hope, does it? I mean, 91% of people that leave a faith community do so because they actually don't have any meaningful relationship in that faith community. 91%, right? Like, think about that. That's an incredible amount. Why? How? They at no point did they say, yeah, I just don't believe that anymore, or yeah, you just really made me mad and offended me. They actually left because they were apathetic. They said, I left because there was nothing worth staying for. There was no one worth staying for. And so they left. And I think that kind of taps into a need and a desire of our souls that we have, a desire of our spirits that calls out for something that God offers through the church when it's done correctly. I think as a community of faith, you see, we're called to be disciples, right? We're called to follow Jesus, to try and be like Jesus in every way that we can. But what does discipleship really mean? Can we break that down a little bit? As Jesus was in his Last Supper with his disciples, right before he was taken to the cross, right before they went to the Garden of Gethsemane, he has these ideas, and he's like, I want to communicate to the disciples. I want to communicate to them what's truly most important. And he talks about discipleship, and he talks about it this way. I want you to check this out with me. Jesus says this. He says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Okay? Where are you headed with this? He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Okay, well, that's some, not like that. If we stop right there, that's some pretty strong language. Jesus is saying, if you and I are branches and we are in Jesus as disciples, we're in Jesus. We're trying to become like Jesus. We're trying to remain, as Jesus will say later, in him. He says, if you're not producing fruit, I'm going to cut you off. That's pretty strong language. And then even if you do bear fruit, I'm going to prune you. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to foster your surroundings so that you can bear more fruit. What is that all about? Yeah, because I think when we talk about bearing fruit, when we talk about being productive, what does it mean if I say, hey, I want you to be productive as a Christian? What does that mean? I want you to be productive as a Christian. We can feel like, okay, Christianity is something that calls me to attend, right? And so there are these moments where we actually feel worse about missing church than we feel about mistreating someone at work. And we call that following Jesus. We actually feel worse about missing attendance than we do about our behavior towards another God image-bearing human. That's pretty messed up. Or sometimes we find ourselves, as we're trying to figure out what discipleship means and what it means to be productive, we say, well, that means maybe I shouldn't sin, right? And so we try and say, okay, well, what's a sin? Is this a sin? What if I take it to here? What about to here? Okay? And what we're doing in that process is we're saying, I don't just want to know what a sin is. I want to know how close I can get, right? How close can I get before it's a sin? How close? Is there a loophole maybe? Is there something? Can I make sure I know what not to do so that I can make sure I'm free to do everything else, right? So we decide in our heads that, well, it's attendance or it's our behavior, and just trying to make sure that we know specifically the handful of things that are going to make us be in bad graces with God. Or we can think that one of the things that, if we hurt somebody, that well, we need to make sure we pray to God, right? And we need to drop our knees, or maybe we need to do a ritual depending on what tradition you grew up in. And we need to go through this process of a prayer or a ritual. And then God and I were okay. And whether or not I work it out and pursue reconciliation with the other person, it's not as important. Like somehow discipleship has boiled down to God and me. Like, have I been enough of a disciple to get my butt into heaven? That's really what we're asking. And so as we look at discipleship, we talk about productivity, and we're like, well, yeah, I want to be productive. I need to maybe attend enough and be kind enough and ask for forgiveness enough. And then God and I, we're going to be okay. But that's not the production that Jesus is talking about here. And he's about to kind of go into that. In fact, that's kind of a backwards way of looking at it. The backwards way of looking at it, and what sometimes religion has done, is it's asked this question: what must I do to keep things right between God and me? What do I got to do to keep things right between God and I, right? So how can I define, okay, this is okay, that's not okay, I got to do this, I got to check off these check marks so that God and I, we're all right. And it completely misses the message of Jesus, because in the end, this means our faith is about me. Our faith is about me. My faith, it's my faith, it's no one else's. I don't need to bother anyone else with it. It doesn't need to affect anyone else's. It's just God and I. The center of our approach then is not God, it's me. Does it serve me? Does it get me to the destination I want to go to? And if it's about what I need to do, if it's about what I need to figure out, then the thing that I want to know is, how can I figure it out? And what loopholes and corners can I cut? And how can I just shrink it down so that it affects the rest of my life a little less? Right? And so maybe you've been there in the past, maybe you've kind of felt that, maybe you've met someone and their faith just kind of felt like that. But that's not what Jesus talks about when he talks about being a disciple. It's not about God and me. In fact, he's pretty direct. He has a greater plan than us being self-focused. And check this out. Jesus' model isn't centered on you, right? It's not centered on me. It's centered on the you beside you. The you beside you. Not the you that you live with, that maybe you're sitting on the couch, though that counts as the you beside you. But for Jesus, the you beside you that faith focuses on, the you beside you that is the priority of a disciple. Discipleship for Jesus is centered around the you beside you that you might not get along with otherwise. It's the you beside you that is from a different political party. It's the you beside you that you kind of feel like is entitled or kind of stuck up and self-centered. It's the you beside you whose dog keeps pooping on your lawn. You know what I mean? Like for Jesus, it has no boundaries. It has no walls. He says, no, being a disciple isn't about you and me. It's about you and the you beside you. Right? In fact, throughout Jesus' teaching, we're actually invited to love people the way God loves them. That's, in essence, the core of Jesus' teaching. And see where he goes. You see, after Jesus talks about being productive, where does Jesus go next? He says, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. Okay? All right, Jesus, I like this message so far. I'll remain being loved by you. This is great. I want to make sure I just dwell on that. That's you and me. But Jesus doesn't stop there. Watch this. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love. So how do I remain? I don't just kind of sit back in Jesus' love. How do I remain? I keep Jesus' commands. That's how I remain. just as I've kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. So we follow Jesus' commands just as Jesus followed the Father's commands. And then he follows that up, right? At this point, the big question mark, the big crux of everything isn't like, okay, how do I remain? The big question is, okay, Jesus, what's your command? Like, what are your commands? What is it then that you're calling me to do? That's the crux. For these Jewish boys who have been raised in the Torah, who have been raised to follow all 900 plus laws and to place a hedge around it, to follow all of these plethora of commands about how to wash your hands and what you can do on the Sabbath and what things are clean and not clean. These Jewish boys, what they want to know is, okay, I want to remain in you, Jesus. You're my rabbi. I want to follow you. I want to be your disciple. How do I do that? What are your commands? Tell me. And then Jesus just breaks it down. He says, my command is this: love each other as I've loved you. Love each other as I've loved you. Now, what do you mean as you've loved us? Like the way you ate with us, the way you talked with us, the way we just kind of shared life together, the way you showed us things and you talked about your relationship with God, and you just kind of loved on us? Yeah, just like that. And then later, as John would reflect on this later, he'd reflect and say, wait a minute. You mean the way that you died and laid down your life for us and rose again for us? Like that kind of love? Yeah, that kind of love. Just like that kind of love, in fact, because Jesus goes on. And he says, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. All right, Jesus, that's quite the commitment there. There's not a lot of loopholes in that one. Like, I don't really understand I can't really say, okay, but what's a sin? What's not a sin? What do you mean? Like you just want me to love people in a way that just gives of myself? So basically then, what you're just asking me is to do whatever the most loving thing for someone is at all times? Yeah, that's the idea. Love your neighbor as yourself. Paul would come along later on and he'd sum it up this way in his letter to the Galatians. And this is as strong as it gets, right? For the entire law, all of it, is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. All of it. To be a disciple, to follow the command of God, it is all summarized in this one thing: are you loving well? Do you love well? Are you making the most loving choice in your interactions with the people around you, with the people that God brings into your life? Are you choosing the most loving thing? So our question then as disciples is always this: what is the most loving thing for those I influence? What is the most loving thing for those I influence? And you influence almost everyone that you interact with, don't you? You see, you and I, we as a church, as disciples of Jesus, as followers, even on our couches at home, even in bed in our pajamas, even on the porch sipping some coffee right now, wherever you're at, you and I, we are evidence of God's love for others. You and I were evidence of God's love for other people. Other people know that God loves them because of how we love them. And without our love for them, they won't know God's love. It's that simple. We are known by our behavior. We're known by our love for one another. Our mission is this selfless stance towards others. We could put it this way: you and I live for others' sake, just as Jesus lives for our sake. We live for others because Jesus lives for us. Jesus wraps up this interaction with his disciples this way. really interesting. He said, you did not choose me, I chose you. I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last. Jesus says, hang on. You feel like you chose me, maybe you're sitting on your couch today and you feel like, yeah, I made a decision for Jesus. Here's the deal. Maybe you're sitting on your couch. Maybe you're tuned in here for North Hills today. Maybe we're all together right now because God chose you. God chose me. God chose us. And he chose us to invest in a few people, just the same way that he did. To be specific, to be intentional, to be purposeful in our love for people. And it's not that we shouldn't have love for all people, right? But Jesus chose the disciples so that they could see what it would look like to choose others. To be a disciple is to make a disciple. To have been discipled and to disciple someone else. That we could feel like what it means to be touched by Jesus, to be touched by love. Jesus chose the disciples so they could see what it would look like to choose others. Jesus said, here, this is what love looks like. This is what it feels like. This is how it operates. This is how we share life together. This is what we do together. And I want you to do that with a few people too. And if you do that with a few, and then they do that with a few, and then they do that with a few, I'm telling you, you don't need a big platform. You don't need a big stage. You don't need a big following. That it's just a little at a time, a few at a time, you can change the world because of your love. Because you're chosen for what? Jesus wraps up this section with his disciples. He says, this is my command. He reiterates it. Love each other. This is my command. Love each other. Choose to love. Not that we're not, of course we're going to be loving towards everybody, but at the same time, you can't do for everyone what you could do for a few. You can't love everyone the same way you love a few. We mentioned last week that it's easy to talk about loving humanity. It's harder to love humans. It's harder to get more specific. It's harder to get more intimate. It's harder to narrow things down. But what we need is specificity. What we need is intentionality. What we need is purpose. Because Jesus chose a few. He could have chosen everyone. Except he recognized that even he probably couldn't do that and show love well. Not on a day-to-day basis. Right? What does it look like to show love with our time to a few? What does it look like to show love financially to a few? What does it look like to show love in our energy and our thought space and in our prayers to a few people? What does it look like to show love to a few? I love this saying. Do for a few what you wish you could do for everyone. Do for a few. Choose some. Do for a few what you wish. It would be amazing to do it for everyone. And sometimes we get complaints that, hey, you did this for that person and you didn't do it for this person. And I feel like you're playing favorites. It's like, hey, Jesus had to make some choices and so I do too. I do too. And we need to, we're going to love everybody, but we're going to choose to be specific and to take care with a few. To do for a few what we wish. I'd love to do it for everyone, but maybe I can't. I'm limited. I'm a finite person. You're a mortal. And right now it feels a lot like it is. We're trapped in our homes. We know our own limits, don't we? And so Jesus says, all I need you to do is choose a few. I mean, what are the moments that someone chose you? What are the moments that someone chose to show some love for you? What are those moments where your life was changed because someone was intentional in showing love to you. I love this video. It's a cute little cartoon. There's a great nonprofit called StoryCorps, and what they love to do is gather stories, and some of them they'll animate, but they just gather people's stories, and this is kind of a funny one. There's a lot of them. You can kind of look it up online, but check this one out. It's about Miss Divine.
Let's talk about Miss Divine.
Lizzie Divine.
Miss Divine was a wiry lady. She wore summer dresses. She had a bandana and a straw hat. And she was the only person I knew that had more power than my grandmother.
She wasn't a mean person. She was stern.
Stern, yes, very
and
stern.
You know, when she said something, she meant exactly what she said.
Right.
In fact, she was our Sunday school teacher. The only thing that would keep you from going to Sunday school, you had to have one foot on a banana peel and the other in the grave.
Absolutely.
That's the only
There's
thing.
no excuse.
You had to go.
Had to go.
One of the things that you prayed for when you were in Ms. Divine's class was, Lord, please let me get old enough to get out of this class. She did the catechism. Who made you? God. Where is God? Everywhere. She went through and said, oh, Lord, have mercy, please.
This Miss Divine would come in on Sunday mornings to take us to Sunday school. And when I saw her come share, I thought the leaves would be blowing out the trees and the sky would go black and the clouds would come in. And she'd come in the house one morning and say, good morning, children. And everybody, my mother on down, said, good morning, Miss Divine. And she says, it's time to go to Sunday school this morning, children. I said, Miss Divine, I can't go to Sunday school today. She said, no. I said, no, ma'am. She says, why not? She said, because I said my mother didn't bring enough clothes for me to go to Sunday school this morning. She said, oh, no. I said, no, ma'am. She said, well, what do you have? What kind of clothes do you have? I said, all I have, Miss Divine, are my pajamas and my tennis shoes. She said, well, that's okay, honey. Put your tennis shoes on. We go to Sunday school. I looked at my mother, and she looked away, Sherry. Miss Divine made me walk 2 blocks in my pajamas and my tennis shoes. I had to sit in church with my friends doing Sunday school in my pajamas and my tennis shoes. I would tell you, Sherry, I'll never lie again.
Ms. Divine was always there to take care of us.
Right.
But when Ms. Divine braided your hair, your eyes went up like this. You had to sleep on soft pillows because, I mean, boy, she had it tight. And Ms. Divine had mango trees all over her yard. But Ms. Divine never brought you a mango until it was rotten. It would smell like liquor. That's when she brought you the mango.
But you know what? That's the kind of stuff that we got growing up, and I'll never forget that.
What are the stories where a Miss Divine showed love to you? And yeah, you probably didn't laugh about it at the time, maybe. Maybe you laugh about it now, because we don't love people perfectly, do we? It's not a perfect thing. We don't get to love people perfectly. We have to love people in the broken ways that we love. In the broken intentionality, in the ways we get our messages crossed, and in the ways we try one thing and it doesn't work and we kind of fall flat on our face and we're vulnerable. Like we're a mess. Our love is a mess. It's not quite that clean. But who is the Miss Divine in your story? Who are the people that can show you love? You see, God doesn't ask us to love perfectly. In fact, He doesn't ask us to be perfect. He asks us to be productive in love. And so, we're going to try this This is my challenge for us as a faith community. While we're all staying at home, and some of you are out there on the front lines in medical work, we're praying for you every day. Many other of us are just working from home, staying home, trying to keep our kids to get actually doing their homework, schoolwork, whatever your crazy life looks like right now. I have this challenge for you. Right? Here's our talk and our walk. Talk about this. Who are the people who chose to show you love and changed your life? There are people that chose you. Jesus is one of them. There are people that chose you. Who chose you and chose to show you love, and it changed your life? And then for your walk, I want you to begin to choose your 12. Jesus had 12. Choose your 12. As we've been talking about in the middle of the 12 People You Love book discussion on Wednesday nights, who are those 3 family members, those 3 friends, those 3 church friends, those 3 unchurched friends, just kind of sampling from the various aspects of your and my lives that we have, and getting a variety so that we learn to love in different spaces and different kinds of relationships, so that we grow as disciples and we show love to all kinds of relationships. Who are your few? Who are the 12 that you're going to do things for that you wish you could do for everyone? Who are your few? Who are your 12? I want to challenge you to do that today. And in that, I just want to pray for you real quick. Father God, I just thank you that you chose us. That we were chosen to be your sons and daughters. And God, I pray a blessing on all of our community and all those that are tuned in, to our guests, our members, those that are part of us regularly and those that are not. God, may we learn to lift you up through our love. May we learn that our calling is to love people and to make the most loving decisions we can as we interact with them. God, may we learn to see people the way you see them, to love people the way that you love them. We praise you because you first loved us. May you be with us, and may we continue to grow in you. I pray this in your name. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being with us online. How's everyone holding up out there? Are you surviving your isolation or self-quarantine and social distancing? Are you missing your small group or not being able to be with your family members and friends? Or are you out there in the workforce being exposed to many people? Are you in a high-risk group or a high-risk occupation? Are you worried about your job? Or have you been laid off or on a mandatory time off? Are you worried about your finances? But really, the question in all our minds is, are you worried about running out of toilet paper? Seriously though, we all have concerns. And the one thing we all have in common is our need of God. We are a family, and we are here to support each other. So if you have any needs, or you're a first-time viewer, contact us please on nhillschurch.org. Also tune in for our small group night in Zoom every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. as we discuss the 12 people you love. In challenging times like these, we can pull together and support one another and our community through encouragement and aid. You can help us to continue that by donating today through our website or through the mail. God bless. Be well.